Hey, welcome back, Chicago. We are all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship here and Get Down to Business. And I am absolutely thrilled to bring in a subject matter expert, Sherry Quam Taylor, a consultant, a expert, an advisor to all things nonprofit. And for all of our listeners, you know how passionate I am about businesses supporting community, but it's also about sustainable organizations, organizations within our community. And our guest certainly knows a thing or two about that. Sherry, welcome to the program.
Hey, Shalom. How are you tonight?
I'm fantastic. It's great to have you. And I mean what I say. You have educated me, and you have educated so many organizations that I'm so proud to support. But you are if I were to sum it up, you are an educator because you teach nonprofits. Sherry, I love to, as I always say, get to know the person behind the microphone. Can you tell our listeners about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm here in Chicagoland. I'm with you, Shalom. And in essence, I teach nonprofit leaders who usually have backgrounds in their mission or their programs or their mission expertise, I would call, but don't necessarily love the fundraising part. And so I help them, overcome those fears and that dread and really help them start bringing in larger gifts from individuals. And I personally got into this, over a decade ago when I was working in corporate, and I became super passionate about an organization overseas that I became one of those full-time volunteers, if you will. And I started volunteering for them, and it evolved into my career. And I had success growing that organization. And in that, I started meeting with other leaders who, had jumped into nonprofit and kind of found themselves over on this side of the sector and were struggling with a lot of the same things that I had struggled with. And so I started my business over 8 years ago to literally come alongside organizations and specifically leaders and educate them, as you said, on how do you really fully fund your organization? How do you approach planning in a way every year that sets you up for success? And then how do you ask for money? That kind of dreaded question.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. And Sherry, I know that you have, first of all, I can relate on the whole, full-time volunteer thing. And, nonprofit work to many of us is addictive, and it's really because of the impact. And I know that that's really where you help your leaders of nonprofits get to. Different organizations focus on different missions, but ultimately it's really the same principles hold true. And I think it's so incredible what you do. So Sherry, I have to ask you, coming from the corporate world, coming into nonprofit, what principles are transferable between the business world to nonprofit, or is it two totally different animals?
I know this is you just asked me a really controversial question in the sector, but, Shalom, to me, there are so many more commonalities than differences. And I think that maybe the proof in that is that so many people who are in nonprofit today, they didn't start here. And so, the organization that I joined years ago, and frankly, I didn't know it at the time, but it really, I was almost creating the methodology that I teach today. But the organization I had left my corporate career and joined, it was a lot of I realized just a lot of the approach was very reactive. It was very, it's a great idea. We'd love to do that, but we don't have the funding. So, we can't let ourselves think like that, or we can't plan for that. And I think maybe from day one kind of pushed against a lot of the misconceptions of the sector that really says that nonprofits should be able to do more on less. And that's not the truth, right? And so I pushed against that from day one and really approached it probably a little bit more like a business where you have to spend money to make money. We need to spend money on infrastructure and staff and office and admin so that we can raise more money, so that we can have more mission impact.
And the proof is in the pudding, because your recipe works. The outcome, the cake as it might be, it really does produce that. And on your website, which we'll share with our listeners shortly, you talk about some of those examples. But Sherry, from the call it consumer, or rather from the donor supporter perspective, because I believe that probably every single one of our listeners are supporters of different organizations, whether it's animal rescue or whether it's immigration, legal aid groups or whatever the case may be. What should they be looking for when they see nonprofits? There's a lot of great guides that are out there. What's the sign of a well-run organization?
It's so good. And I'll also say during 2020, thank you to everybody who has stepped up to the plate. I have seen the generosity of people. It's really been humbling for me to watch. So thank you to everybody who has said, ooh, I need to do more. So I want to say that too. You know what I would say? This is totally a counterintuitive answer, but hear me out. Healthy and growing nonprofits don't only spend money on their programs. They don't only spend money on serving people. They spend money on growing healthy businesses that then serve people. And so if I'm a donor, I actually don't think it's great when people are promoting, we send 95% to the field and we're all your money is going to go to programs. That's not going to be sustainable. And so to me, a sustainable organization is actually an organization who is on a growth trajectory because they are investing in all three areas of their organization: their programs, their admin and ops, and their fundraising. And it's good for organizations to do that. Groups who do that scale, become fully funded, and actually have greater mission impact in the long run.
And Sherry, as you're talking, I am thinking, by the way, those lessons hold true for small businesses too. Growing small businesses, ultimately, yes, you need to invest in, as you said, that mission and the admin ops and the substitute fundraising for sales. So I see a lot of similarities there, which is awesome. So Sherry, you have so much information that I love getting your emails, by the way. I think I just got one literally as we were coming on the air. So many tips, tricks, and advice. And it's so awesome. But Sherry, if there's one thing that you wanted perhaps a entrepreneur, but by that I mean in the nonprofit space, a social entrepreneur, to know as they get their organization started, what would that one lesson be?
Yeah, my one thing I would say is how you create your budget, your expense side and your income has so much more to do with raising funds than you think. Like my first step with people, which is funny because they kind of hire me to help them on the income side, but I'm straight to the expense. Mm-hmm. Are you raising to the right number? And so many times when I talk to people, and I always use round numbers, so you don't make me do math here, Shalom, but I'll say, hey, so what do you need this year? Like, what's your budget? And I will get a lot of, last year we brought in $1 million. So we'd love to do $1.1 million. We hope we could. But when I dig deeper, we quickly realize that that's not actually helping you grow. And you've kind of skimmed here, and this is kind of squeaked by here. And you know what? I think we actually should be raising to a 1.2 or 1.5. So then and only then can you create a real income plan to hit that 1.2 or 1.3. And so budgeting and your approach and your comfort level with investing and budgeting for your organization has way more to do with fundraising than people think. I always start with the budgeting.
I love it. Sherry, so many great lessons there. And again, I cannot emphasize enough that whether certainly there's many transferable lessons over here, but whether you are a nonprofit executive yourself or you are involved in organizations, it's in your best interest to make sure that you are growing sustainably, that you are investing in all the right places, and there's nobody better to advise you and lead you and educate, as we said, than Sherry Quam Taylor. Sherry, I cannot thank you enough for joining us on the air, but for those folks, listeners that want to subscribe to your emails, learn more about your approach, or even get in touch, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, hop over on my website. It's www.quamtaylor.com. That's Quam and Taylor, Taylor. And you'll find information over there on my coaching. I do 90-day fundraising accelerators. I have a actually really fun new professional development course for development directors coming out next week. So they can find me over there. I have a lot of free playbooks and I'll also just mention that I'm on LinkedIn a lot, as you know.
Yes, you are.
So I share a lot of content on LinkedIn. So find me over there, and I'd love to just chat with you.
I'll check out the website, quamtaylor.com. Thank you so much, Sherry, for joining us and sharing your expertise with us.
You bet.
Have a great evening, and we're going to squeeze in some headlines and a quick break. And after that break, we will be joined by more guests all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Check out my website, shalomklein.com. Get down to business. We'll be back after this quick break.